Well, it's gonna be a long meeting if you're reading that all out.
I read slow too.
In a small print. Bring your magnifying glass, you can see that.
So where we at in the process? Have we,
Tom, I've got you.
okay. So
Hey, Mark, I think I got yours too.
we gotta take the public portion. They present, we take the public portion.
Gary Green did the
After
bid.
that,
It's a new look, to me anyway.
He's here. Prepared, approved with conditions.
Oh, heard him say he's having to learn how to rewalk again. Well, I know he's been there for some time.
Well,
Never
yeah,
understood
I guess
exactly what it
I would
was.
say that if it is just
John?
22 minutes, we go by
He had some back surgeries, I guess he wasn't aware of how expensive it was gonna
I know, one
be. I
time,
think that'd be a shock to anybody.
has an issue near John's carpet.
You look at me.
It was windy, I had subdivision there.
He was already with it, so it might have been down here.
Cash insurance, a couple of.
John and like,
Some
he's
obstacles.
talking, I'm not sure what might be there.
And, we wanted him to change the lot size, so that would pay that property parking, that way when you get it, I took it out there, didn't realize. Car was sitting right there on the block. And he did that.
And they shared it.
That's when we got approving that, approving that. He's not.
When you, next time he comes to Sunday, start running up the driveway.
Sure that you can text now, it's coming. They all the lights out. Well,
We're going to that.
so yeah, I guess
We're approving a minor settlement. So we're not concerned about, we're not concerned about our other different.
No, it's funny because the guy in town. But you know, it's funny, because last night
yeah,
I just drove right through that roadblock. I just drove right through it. I knew what I was doing. They didn't stop me.
Hey Chris,
Get there.
can you hit the little black button on the thermostat
The engineer, they all
on the side of it? Yes, sir. That starts it back over now.
He asked me my name, what was there, my address was. I said, I just went through here. You act like you don't know what you're doing. I was like, what are they doing? Drove right past the roadblock and went in. Nobody chased me. But it's a mess.
That was the same stuff we did as last time.
I never saw any of that, so we're about to turn it around.
So what I was gonna say was, it's the thing that's not in here, and it's the map that is there, it's whenever the sale happens, it's understood.
oh yeah, here's one.
So if you go back to,
Everybody ready,
like whenever they have the sale.
ready to kick it? Okay, it is April 9th, and it is 6 PM. I hereby call the Scott County Advisory Plan Commission to order. Could we have an introduction of members? This is really the first time we've all been here together. I decided I needed, well, the doctor decided I needed surgery, so this been a while for me, 6 months. Normally I try to make them, but Jonathan, if you could, we'll start with you and just kind of go around the table. Introduce yourself, that way the people in the community or our attendees will know who we are. We've got name tags, some of us and some of us don't.
My name is Jonathan White, this is my second meeting.
My name's Randy Julian, County Commissioner, second meeting.
I'm Andrew Boswell. This is my first meeting, new to the board.
I'm Mark Gardner.
Tom Springston.
Matt Overly's first meeting.
And I'm Gary Green.
I'm Carla again.
And I'm Mrs. Sadler, for the record.
Thank you. We have no minutes to approve or adopt, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, we have this, before Snyder, just kind of a brief introduction. The purpose of this meeting tonight is going to be approve a subdivision or not located in Scott County. The normal way this meeting will happen is that we'll ask for those who wish to speak against or have questions about the subdivision. We ask those questions are directed to members of the board. After that particular component, we'll ask for those to speak in favor. We will close the public portion after that section, and we will have some discussion amongst ourselves. Prior to all the things I just talked about, we will have our positioner present what is in the mind to do the subdivision, those types of things, essentially their plan. So that's kind of how we conduct the meeting. So, all right, we're ready to go.
Probably need to point out we have one person abstaining.
All right, Matt is abstaining from the meeting. The rest of us, I assume we will vote when the time comes. All right. Who do we have here that will discuss the subdivision? If you would, if you're asked to speak, you can come forward. This meeting is being recorded. The members are being recorded. The audience is being recorded with their questions. Also, please be sure you've signed in if you're in attendance.
Ready?
I guess so.
My name is John Kraft. I'm with the law firm of Young, Glenn, Emerson Kraft in New Albany, Indiana, appearing on behalf of the applicant, Steve Allback. This matter comes to you tonight as a subdivision, and specifically when it comes to you as a subdivision, it becomes a ministerial act, not a discretionary act. And certainly it comes to you, there are three types of subdivisions in Scott County, and I'm sure you're all aware of that, but I did hear some of you indicate this is your first meeting. But under the terms of your ordinance, there are three types of subdivisions. Each of those types of subdivisions ultimately is determined by what is being presented to you and what ultimately needs to happen with the request. What we have tonight is a subdivision that primarily comes to you. First of all, you've got a basic subdivision, and a basic subdivision is a subdivision that ultimately can be given to the executive director, and she can approve that based upon a basic subdivision. This is not a basic subdivision. A basic subdivision ultimately deals primarily with there's no opening of new public right-of-ways, and the subdivision does not result in more than 4 lots being divided from a single-parent tract. So your next type of subdivision is a minor subdivision. And a minor subdivision is very similar to a basic subdivision, but ultimately in a minor subdivision, same situation. Purpose is to provide a simplified review of that request. Simplified review in the sense that it does not involve the construction of any new streets. Likewise, no new roads, no creation of easements or anything of that nature. And as a result of that, it requires primary and secondary approval. That primary and secondary approval still can be given by the executive director when you have a minor subdivision. And likewise, with a minor subdivision, you cannot have any more than 4 parcels that can come off of a single parent tract. This is not a minor subdivision. What this comes to you is in the form of a major subdivision. And a major subdivision requires public hearing, as we're here this evening. It also allows for the development consistent with your subdivision control ordinance as well as your zoning ordinance. This property is currently zoned agricultural. So the result tends to be with a major subdivision, you end up in a situation where it's all ministerial. If we meet the development requirements, Mr. Allback, by virtue of the preliminary plat that's been presented to you, if those meet the development standards, For an agricultural district, then your action becomes ministerial in nature. It's not a matter of whether you like it, you don't like it. It's a matter that you look primarily to your subdivision control ordinance, and you look specifically at page 12 under the terms of your subdivision control ordinance. And at that point in time, in an agricultural district, you can have residential lots. And if you do, all of those lots must be 2 acres or greater. If you look at this plat and you realize that all of these lots exceed 2 acres in size, not only do you deal with that, but you then deal primarily with minimum setbacks that you have to be intended on a county road, specifically under the terms of this. All of those lots have to meet that minimum setback. And then likewise, as the houses are built, you have to deal primarily with the maximum coverage with the houses. And of course, that's something that you'll deal with at a point in time when people come in to deal with the possibility of a building permit. But when you look at the actual requirements under a major subdivision, you're faced with looking at the development standards in an agricultural district, and those again can be found on page 12 of your subdivision control ordinance as it relates to those. In this instance, what we're presenting to you this evening meets every element of those development standards. So the result tends to be, by virtue of this being a subdivision, by meeting the development standards of an agricultural district, your job is to look at that, make a determination, and approve it. I know that people don't like to hear that, but I've litigated the cases and taken 3 cases of the Indiana Supreme Court, deal primarily with published opinions that tell primarily that when a subdivision meets the minimum standards of the development standards of a district in which it is placed, then your action becomes ministerial. It's merely a matter then of reviewing that plat to make certain that it meets those minimum requirements. You'll notice when you look at the plat, there is no lot in that plat that is less than 2 acres. If you look specifically, there is one that is 2.032 acres, one that is 2.041 acres. The others are substantially larger. So when you look at that, the plat itself, this is a preliminary plat, so the result tends to be that upon approval of the preliminary plat, we have to return to you with a final plat, and that final plat ultimately has to meet the requirements of the subdivision control ordinance as to what is contained on that actual plat. Mr. Gardner and his job, I'm sure, sees this on a regular basis from the standpoint of what a secondary or final plat has to do. At the point in time it comes to you on a final plat, that is not a public hearing, it is a public meeting, and we have to appear before you, but it only comes to you to make certain that we have met the requirements that are set out in the preliminary plat, and we still meet those development standards under the agricultural district. I'll take any questions you may have of me, but ultimately we're here this evening asking for the approval of this major subdivision. Again, meeting the standards of the agricultural district, and as a result of that, your action then becomes ministerial in nature rather than discretionary. I'll take any questions you may have of me. Mr. Allback's here with me. He can answer any questions you may have of him. Otherwise, I'll let you hear those folks that are here.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kraft. And I'll beg off one more time. I was not at the last meeting. My confusion comes with looking at a minor subdivision. Is this filed as a minor subdivision?
No, it's filed as a major subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah, it will not qualify as a minor subdivision.
Our paperwork says minor.
No, it's actually a major subdivision. It doesn't qualify as a minor, doesn't qualify as a basic.
That paperwork was filled out by Karen Hughes.
Okay, but it's a major subdivision. That's what it's here for.
That's what I was asking for. I guess was then the fee might need to be adjusted because the fee was just paid as a
That's fine.
subdivision. So I wanted to clarify that because that's when you
No, it's
said
a
the
major-
major threw me off because it's filed as a minor.
No, it's a major, and that's the reason I explained the differences. It doesn't qualify as a minor, doesn't qualify as a basic. It can only be brought forward to you as a major subdivision.
Thank you. That was a point of clarification.
Thank you.
Because I was, as always, partially confused.
Not a problem. I get that way too.
We kind of heard the,
How many tracks will there be produced from this subdivision?
Steve, your total is,
I'm trying to count them, but
yeah, here, I can tell you, I have a breakdown. Bear with me.
Mr. Kraft, if we could take a moment while you locate that. I'm certain that there's members in the audience who probably, just like John, would want a clarification on that particular, how many's going in. You described the lot size as the minimum for the agriculture, which is 2 acres, 200-foot road frontage. But the density, how many lots are in there, if we could clarify that so we know.
When this, I'll clarify, when this property was first purchased, it was purchased in 2023 at an auction that Beckert conducted. There at that point in time was tracks 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. What then occurred was 1, 2, and 3 had one parcel number and they were on one deed with 3 legal descriptions. And the parcel number, again, if it's concerned to you, I'll give you the parcel number. It's 72-008-98-200-006.000-005. Tract 1 of that is being split into 5 tracts. Tract 2 splitting into 3 tracts, and tract 3 of that is not being split. Tracts 5 and 7 have one parcel number on one deed with 2 legal descriptions. That parcel number is 72-008-98-600.008.000-005. Tracts 5, they're wanting to split into 6 tracts, tract 7 splitting into 3 tracts. That's the reason, again, it comes to you, and if you look at the plat initially, that was put together as a variance to begin with, but it's not a variance, it's a request for subdivision. It breaks down all of those tracts, as I just indicated. So it's being presented as a complete subdivision, as a major subdivision, based upon the minimum requirements under your agricultural district. Hopefully, Mr. Green, that clarifies some of it.
That does. I wanted to be sure that members of the audience were aware of the numbers that you wanted to put in here since we're privy to that. Is the latest map, the one I'm looking at, most accurate? Is that
Yes.
part of our, Carla, is that part of our file that we have, this map?
Is that, yeah, so
As we
I
were
think
saying-
we've got these, the smaller in here in
Yeah,
our
that's
packet,
the,
but yeah.
that's the,
that is not correct. That's the original, this one.
this is the actual. I
This
just
one,
wanted,
I handed out at the last meeting.
Well, that's what they want to do.
Yeah, this is the larger, but what you have should be the correct. I handed those out at the last meeting.
I just wanted to be sure this is in our file and recorded as an exhibit. Okay.
Any additional questions?
No, Mr. Kraft, any additional comments? We will, once we close the public portion, I'll ask you to come back and
Sure.
then, based upon the questions and some of the things that we have kind of conjured between then and now in our own mind, we might have some additional questions.
I've got one starting out. I think it was in the last packet, but I don't see it in this one. It could be, I may not found it yet. He had covenants that he was
Yes.
going to attach to these lots.
Yes, they were with the original app.
Do we have those?
You should. Yeah.
Okay. They say it's in there. I haven't found it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't, I have it in there, but
Would,
I don't know if that will answer some of the public's questions too.
would we want to read that before we even started this?
I think it might,
I got it.
just based on some of these responses we have received, of course, they might not be here necessarily, but it answers some, probably some questions that might be.
Mr. Kraft, I have one more additional
Yes, sir.
question. Even though we have the full membership of the board, it is your wish to continue until we have a decision tonight, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Before we begin the public portion, I'm gonna ask Carla to read the covenants or review them, so we're familiar with those. We have an updated plat map with the numbers and just the covenants of when I purchase a piece of property, this is what will kind of govern me as to what I can build, how I can build, etc.
Right, exactly. So I'll turn it around here. So hopefully this will answer some of your questions. Like I said, I saw some of the responses and people's concern of what would be built if this was approved. So this will, anybody advised has to abide by these covenants, okay? All right. First, no dwelling shall be permitted whose ground floor area of the main structure, exclusive of one-story open porches, garages, and finished basements, is less than 1,400 square feet, except 2 stories, which must have a minimum of 1,700 square feet total. No home can be placed or built on this real estate without the written approval of the developer. Second, no single-wide mobile home, trailer, basement, tent, shack, other outbuildings erected shall be used at any time as a residence temporarily or permanently, nor shall any structure or temporary character be used as a residence. Modular homes, sectional homes, and double wides shall be allowed on this real estate, but there must be a concrete or cement permanent foundation. A pole barn type home will be allowed. Third, there is imposed a 100-foot setback line from the center line of Pleasant Ridge and Robbins Road, and no building or structure shall be erected within such setback unless approved by the developer. 4, no junk or inoperative automobiles, unlicensed automobiles, or similar materials shall be maintained upon the real estate. 5, real estate shall not be used or maintained as a dumping ground for rubbish, etc. Trash, garbage, or other waste shall not be kept except in sanitary containers. All incinerators or other equipment for the storage or disposal of such material shall be kept in a clean and sanitary condition. Next, the property is to be maintained in a clean and respectable manner. Individual sewage disposal systems shall be located and constructed in accordance with the requirements, standards, and recommendations of the State Board of Health. Approval of such systems as installed shall be obtained from such authority and must be installed prior to occupancy of property. No animal shall be kept upon the real estate except commonly accepted domestic pets. Also accepted are cows and horses, 1 head per 2 acres of land. No business or commercial activity of any kind shall be carried out upon the premises without written consent of the developer. Be advised that this real estate is an agricultural residential area which permits agriculture. Agricultural operations produce livestock, crops, noise, odors, work, odd hours, and slow-moving farm. There shall be only 1 residence per lot. No lot shall be further subdivided to create additional building site. All lot owners must install driveway culverts, which must be a minimum of 15 inches in diameter, or requirement from County Highway Department or Indiana State Highway Department. Subject to all oil, gas, and mineral leases, if any, recorded or unrecorded. And all lot owners and/or home builders are responsible for individual erosion control and State of Indiana Rule 5 compliance. Proper driveway shall be constructed into each lot by the home builder or homeowner prior to construction.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to the public portion. As I mentioned, for those wishing to speak that have questions or against this particular subdivision request, do I have anyone wishing to speak? If you would, just identify yourself before you speak. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Mr. Green, can I have them also identify themselves as far as address as well, which would be required?
That's fine.
Thank you.
My name is Bronson Barth. I live on Pleasant Ridge Road, 3435, South Pleasant Ridge. I'm in the corner of Pleasant Ridge and Robbins. Concerns I have. First and foremost, I spoke with Stucker Fork Water, and they've talked to their engineers. The current water system out there, I've been told, will not sustain more homes. And it will be a substantial amount of money to upgrade it to make it so that it will. We have problems right now. We're at the end of the line. That water line that we're on now with Stucker Fork, it makes the corner up there by, what's that, Whitetail, and then goes up almost to 356. So we're right at the end of the line. When I got my water running, somebody else turns water on, I can tell. You put 15, 20 more houses out there, there's no water pressure for anybody. And if that's be the case, if there's gotta be upgrades, who's paying for it? Am I gonna have to pay for it in my water bill? Is the developer paying for it? Some of the covenants that you listed on there, I knew they would come up. I'd like to show you guys some of these. These are pictures of properties on Robbins Road that are currently in Mr. Albeck's deeded to his name. This is what they look like. If you want to pass those down, junk all over the place. There's properties out there that have multiple animals on only 2 acres of land. So, that being the case, who's going to enforce this stuff? Building restrictions. Personally, I moved out there because I didn't want city living. I understand progress happens. You can't stop it. But, you know, I don't want to be around, you know, I'm not saying everything would be trailers out there, but I just don't want to feel like I'm living in a trailer park area. Estate homes, I'd be more than happy with. But putting that many houses out there, biggest thing is the water. What's the impact going to be on the roads going in and out of there? A lot more traffic. Aside from that, I really don't have much else to say, but y'all welcome to keep those pictures. Take a drive out there. There's houses out there, or there's property out there that look like people's personal dumping grounds.
I'm making notes, I just have a couple of questions. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition or have questions?
Did we need to say that we want to speak, or is it okay if we have questions? I didn't put that I want to speak, but I have questions.
Just same thing as the last gentleman, identify yourself and your address.
I'm Amanda Judd. I live on 3288 South Pleasant Ridge Road, which is right on the corner, like the curve that comes around. My question is, can they come back and ask to split this more? I mean, it's already being split quite a few different ways, but can they come back at a later date and say, ooh, the ones that are bigger pieces, we're gonna go ahead and split them into more pieces? I mean, that's kind of what I want to know. And I'm kind of concerned on, our road is awful as it is. I mean, if you try to drive down our road and you meet another person, it's not happening. And we have lots of tractors and lots of vehicles that come down through there, and it's hard to get. I have to pull off the side of the road. If I meet the bus, I gotta pull off the side of the road. If I meet another vehicle, I gotta pull off the side of the road. So that's another thing to consider too.
Thank you.
Can I add to what she said? With the traffic, I'm in and out of there on a regular basis, several times a week out of my property, pulling a 41-foot horse trailer that's 8 foot wide. And same thing, I've got to get off on the side of the road. In current conditions, being that wet, that trailer's getting stuck.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone wish to speak in opposition or further questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Chris Gomes, I live at 5200 Whitetail Lane, which is right off of Pleasant Ridge Road, next door neighbors to the Judds. Definitely agree with him with the shower deal. I mean, all the way up down the road in the morning, you get up around 6 a.m. I mean, I can pour more water out of a cup or a pop can than what comes out my shower every morning. We talked to Stucker Fork. They always assure us there's no issues, no water line breaks or anything like that. And I know they got me on record for at least 10 times a year calling in about water pressure. Don't know what, I didn't look into it like he did or anything, but, you know, I'm sure it needs upgraded and whatnot, but again, I don't want to be paying for that. And again, with the roads, Robin Road now, about half of it is one lane. Currently flooded, it gets muddy at the bottom even in the lightest rain. So I don't see anybody traveling that road much. We do every now and then, just to look at the countryside and whatnot, but my way in and out of work, I go down Pleasant Ridge to Kinderhook and then out to Highway 3. Kinderhook's horrible, which everybody already knows. They patched it up best they can, and I respect that, but it's a very narrow road. And given what Amanda said, I'm constantly pulling over for the school bus, if not having to get into somebody's driveway. And same way on Pleasant Ridge in areas as well. Plus Pleasant Ridge on the one down the hill to the bridge there, constantly calling the dispatch up here about having to move trees and everything out of it. So we're always having to go around Robin Road, and I couldn't imagine having to go down that and pass somebody. But also given I lived on Blotcher Road at one time. It was part of the landowner deal now off East Blotcher Road. It was the same way. I mean, even though I wasn't allowed to have a trailer, I did. I didn't know that. I just was told that by my neighbors. But my neighbors were extremely trashy. It got to the point of people having oil barrels and stuff like that. It was leaking. We called it in. Nothing got done about it. We ended up moving to where we're at now because of that. Most of the lots and areas I've seen that's owned by them is the same way. I mean, I've got a brother that's on Ward Spring Road. That's over South Boston. And he's been fighting with the owners and the town about people just moving in on a lot out there, and they're not paying for it, and they're not getting thrown off. I'm sure there's a trail there. I wish I'd come a little bit better prepared with some history and some information on all that, but I don't. But that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in opposition or have questions? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Amber Howard. I live at 3698 South Robbins Road. I agree with the road. I've watched many a times the school bus. I mean, there's not a possible way for 2 people to go through there, along with the other residences on the corner that has junk and everything. If there's an ordinance about the animals that's not kept in order, because them animals are completely running everywhere. They've been hit by vehicles. We've once had police come to our house asking questions about this certain house or certain property over their stuff. I mean, nothing's, if that's in the covenant, it's not being, like, it's not being agreed to with the person that's doing the covenant. And now we have police coming to our house. If we have that same kind of going in a subdivision, are we gonna have more crime? You know, that's something else we worry about. You got that already out there. We already had trouble with that. Animals running around everywhere. I understand we live in the country, but if you're not containing them where they're damaging our vehicles, their stuff's out in the roads where it could damage other people's vehicles because it's not taken care of. And once again, on the countryside, you know, you move out there to get away from people, to enjoy peace, not have it be shoved right in your backyard, you know.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Penny Heiler, 5191 East State Road 356, Scottsburg. I have a question about, there's slate there. I didn't know what kind, if they're going to have septic tanks or what kind of sewer system, how that's going to operate. That land is not flat. It's all different shapes. And rolling and low spots. I don't know if you go there right now, if you find pools of water. probably would, but I was concerned about that too.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions, concerns? I'll go ahead and close that portion. Any of those wish to speak in favor of this project or any favorable comments or questions, clarifying questions? We'll close the public portion of this. If additional questions arise, we'll try to call on you, but if you want to speak, now's a good time. Mr. Kraft, the public portion is closed. It is now our time to ask some questions. Guys, normally I kind of poll people, but I'm going to start a little bit. If you would, I just need some clarification on a couple of questions. It is not your plan to include any existing property or the covenants that governs that with this subdivision, is that correct?
That's correct. It would be only what's being proposed to you as a subdivision.
Okay. And if there is a working violation of that covenants, that, someone moves in and a year later, they go against the covenants, what's the process? Is it a civil suit?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I need that clarification.
Sure. Covenants, first and foremost, are governed by the owners, the residents, and certainly from the standpoint, every owner in a development, whether it's a platted subdivision in the city, each owner has a right to enforce. The enforcement comes through that, and the provisions of covenants are only contracts between the developer and all owners within there. It doesn't give any opportunity or authority or jurisdiction to a county or to a city, depending upon where a subdivision is located, only if there is a violation of a building code or something of that nature that the jurisdiction lies under the terms of an ordinance. So it's going to be up to individual owners that are there enforcing their own covenants. It's a self-governing body. The covenants, likewise, in the state of Indiana now, there is a statute specifically as it relates to covenants and dealing with covenants and the possibility of homeowners association, which there will not be a HOA, but it ultimately gives enforcement rights to every individual that owns a lot or a parcel within the subdivision.
That's civil.
Pardon?
That's civil.
It's civil to the extent that there are enforcement provisions, and it's a matter of, it's always interesting when you have homeowners associations, not to go to that direction, but I do a lot of this type of work. A lot of people come in to me and they say, John, I just got elected president of my HOA. And I have two comments. One, were you absent? And the second being, my condolences. And the reason being is because when you become a president of an HOA, all of a sudden you become the enforcement officer and everybody comes knocking on your door and said, John Doe living next door to me has a problem. And the result tends to be, it's up to you to deal with that. Well, I'm his neighbor, I don't want to enforce it. So in this instance, that's what it takes. It'll take those individual owners to enforce that because there is no HOA. And it would then be either going to them initially to enforce them. If it's not enforced in that instance, then they certainly can file, as you've indicated, Mr. Hauser, they can file a civil suit in order to enforce them. Enforcement would be involving injunctive relief, stopping that from happening, as well as the possibility of seeking damages.
Let me explore a little bit further with Mr. Kraft. Just as looking back, just like yourself, I've been at this a number of years. In one occasion, we had a dispute on a property line where a neighbor parked a piece of equipment, put some trash cans out there in retaliation because the property owner did not want a pole barn built in the location. We turned that down. Essentially, it's the way they had it because they needed a variance. We turned the variance down. But that did not mean they could not build that property that barn on the 2 acres or multiple acres they have because they didn't need a variance. So they were successful in building a building that essentially blocked the neighbor's view. What I hear you describe with these covenants is that prior to me building, I have to seek that approval to where someone who is doing the subdivision will say, no, you gotta move this barn over here. If I ignore that and I go ahead and build that barn, then the neighbor could have some relief other than coming from in front of this board or the Board of Zoning Appeals saying, hey, what can I do? They could get an attorney, they could sue, they could do those types of things. Am I correct?
Not really. And the reason being is this development is subject to Scott County's setback requirements under the terms of your zoning ordinance, under the terms of your subdivision control ordinance. So if they're gonna build a building that doesn't meet those subdivision, or doesn't meet those county requirements, they're not gonna get a building permit. And if they build it in violation, that's a county issue, not an issue with the developer. Because ultimately, the county has, if you look at your subdivision control ordinance and you look at an agricultural district, it deals with all of your setback requirements, front, back, side, everything of that nature. As you probably heard, the covenants being read, this setback in this instance is a whole lot more than what the county requires as it relates to front. So those control that frontage piece of it. Setbacks on the other pieces of that are based upon county ordinance. So if it's in violation of county ordinance, one, they're probably not going to get a building permit. And if it's in violation of the ordinance and they build it, then I'm sure either one, Carla's going to be sending them a letter on behalf of the Plan Commission and Building Department because they violated the ordinance. But from the standpoint of that issue, it'll be governed by the ordinances as it relates to setback, other than the front, which is a whole lot stricter than what is being required in the county.
Just want to bet you hear some additional questions. Things like storm drainage and septic systems are all
Governed by the county.
County by state law in some cases by.
They have to have a septic permit in order before they can ever get a building permit. And the county is going to issue that based upon a determination as to the suitability for that to occur.
Okay. The other part that, and I don't know if you've done any research into that, and there might not be an answer tonight, is the water pressure question that we've had with several people.
It would be up to the utility in order to deal with taps coming to this development from Stucker Fork. But that's ultimately the determination that Stucker Fork makes with Mr. Allback once this is approved in dealing with water taps.
Has there been any discussion with Stucker Fork over that?
Not on my behalf.
No, not currently.
And that is the Stucker Fork district, correct?
Yep.
I've asked a ton of questions. Jonathan, I just kind of want to start down there. If any of y'all got any additional questions, something I forgot, didn't mention, kind of go around the table. Randy, any of y'all have any questions?
Well, if water pressure is low, you can always put in a pressure tank. And that's not really questions for a developer. I mean, that's gonna be a utility problem. That's not gonna be the developer's problem. That's my thought on that.
And that's just as the maintenance of the road is the county's problem. Mr. Commissioner.
I don't really have any questions. I've read through this stuff pretty thoroughly. Other than I will kind of, touch a little bit on what John just said. I mean, Stucker Fork could put in pressure regulators and other stuff, and they probably should if they have not. I'm not, understanding the infrastructure out there with the water, but there is things that Stucker Fork shouldn't be able to do for you guys as far as what should be. Sounds like to me they need to be doing it anyway. But, and on a legal side of it, I just want people to understand, you know, as far as the county goes, the county is not an HOA. We cannot be held to govern how neighbors and stuff cohabitate together. So it's for me personally, it's more of a, is this legal to do, yes or no? And that's I guess is where I'm at with it.
And ultimately, that's the bottom line with us. Does it fit? Does it work? Subdivision, we do listen to the concerns and try to address them as much as possible. But ultimately, it's just yes or no with us.
Right.
That's a very good point.
Well, and questions on the, you know, whether the ground holds perk and stuff, that's all stuff the health department's gonna worry about. You know, if a standard system doesn't hold, they're gonna tell you what you have to put into that will hold.
And if you don't do that, you don't get a building.
Yeah.
Any additional questions, Tom, anybody?
And I don't have any for Mr. Kraft. I have one for our legal counsel in a moment, if we're done with that.
Okay. Mark, anybody?
I have a question about.
Yes, sir.
You refer to these as covenants.
Yes.
And maybe they're one and the same. The first line says, the real estate shall be conveyed subject to the following restrictions.
Covenants and restrictions are one and the same.
So will these be restrictions or covenants that attach to each individual
Each
deed?
individual lot, that's correct.
Are they specifically on the deed?
They will be, yes.
Okay.
I mean, that they will be included on each deed.
Okay. The properties over on Robbins Road that I think the pictures you had were on Robbins Road, are these same covenants attached to those current deeds?
I don't know that question. I don't know the answer to that
Does
question.
Mr. Allbach know that?
I don't know, but I'm gonna say they're different, but I'd have to look, I don't know.
And that's a good question, because our focus is the subdivision here. What's pre-existing, that's the reason I asked that initial question. You're not including any existing houses in that.
That's correct.
So any kind of covenants to that, that does bring up the question about expiration of these covenants at some point in time. But I don't know if you can retro, is what I'm getting at.
Retro as far as bringing other parts within it? No, sir. I mean, in order to do something of that nature, you have to get every owner that has purchased in there to agree.
Right.
And certainly from that standpoint, you can do modifications to do that, but if there is no language contained within restrictive covenants in order to modify, it takes 100% of all owners to agree to modify. If otherwise, if it were in there, some restrictive covenants specifically provide that it may require 51%, it may require 75%, but those are written within the restrictions. Where they're not written, Indiana law says it takes 100% to modify.
And going back to one of your original statements, that another clarifying point in my mind, if you and I adjoin property in this subdivision, and I'm certain you violate the covenants of that, I don't have to get a majority of the people that bought into the subdivision. I can go ahead and start pursuing what I need to pursue.
Absolutely, and I wish more people would do that, because that again is where many restrictive covenants get ignored because they don't want to upset their next door neighbor. And I hate to say that, but that's really what it amounts to.
And that's the confusion I think a lot of people have when it comes to a homeowners association.
Right.
You know, when it's obviously a piece of property that it says in the covenants cannot be used as a rental for, you know, on the Ohio River, and they're using it, you know, 1 week in this group, 1 week in that group, definitely defies the covenants. But the particular case I'm referring to, they had to get the homeowners association to agree to it, and just like you said, the property there was a lot. It took about a year before they decided, yeah, this is bad enough.
One of the areas of amendments that has been happening within the past 2 to 3 years with developments is just what you're indicating. They're putting what we call short-term rental amendments in their restrictive covenants that limit how short a time that can be. Some of them going 6 months, some of them 3 months, but in many instances, what they try to do is limit that so they're not getting the VRBO every weekend renting next door to them. And I will tell you that of the ones I've done, you can imagine that there's almost been a unanimous vote of individuals that live in a development currently of putting in those short-term rentals. The only thing you have to be careful of is how short you go, and is there a question of fair housing with what you're doing. So again, yeah.
It's a very good point. That's, I can see that.
Well, when you put these restrictions on a piece of property, it's not hardly your place to go out and enforce them. I mean, you're giving the property owners the ability to enforce them themselves.
Correct.
He's not a police agency. He's not out there looking to see what the guy's done. He's a developer.
Agreed.
Nor is the county building inspector.
Nor is the county building inspector. You know, all the avenues, when he puts in restrictions on this property, it's the people that buys the property's responsibility to follow them. It's not his place to go out there and police them. Just my thought on it, I mean.
On that same note, it states in here about the specs for the house, but it says no home can be placed on the real estate without written approval of the developer.
Correct.
And then it also states no business or commercial activity can be carried out without written consent of the developer. I'm assuming the developer would be Mr. Allback in this.
To be Mr. Allback, but keep in mind, even if that occurs, it's still going to be a requirement of the county because of the zoning and what's being done. The county has the right to enforce any issue with regards to violation of the ordinance conducting a business. Now, we've come to an area now that many people work at home because of internet and things of that nature. And so the overall question comes into if they're conducting a business in which they're having customers come and go on a regular basis, that's a violation of the county ordinance. On the other hand, if they're conducting business because they work out of their home and everything's being done online and they don't have customers coming in on a regular basis, it's hard to enforce that piece of it. But if it's a business per se, Mr. Allback has a right to enforce it, or the other owners have a right to enforce it, as well as the county, because it's a violation of the ordinance based upon the current zoning.
I think there was also some allowable agricultural.
Yes, sir.
Based businesses in agriculture, selling hay, fruit markets, those kind of things. They're a little bit allowable. I think so far in the past, somebody was selling some tack gear that we kind of looked at it and said, they're out in the country, they're selling saddles. That's kind of what country folks do,
But specifically on the houses, I guess the reason I was asking the question is to clarify. I think it was stated it's not the developer's responsibility to enforce these, but is there a process in the initial for them to sign off on the homes? Because this states that they have to approve it, subject to the county approvals, but do the developer sign off on every individual tract?
They will present it to Mr. Allback for his approval before they build what they build, and it cannot fall within one of those areas about single wides. He can't approve those, and he won't. But ultimately, it's up to him to approve what is built to meet the minimum square footage that is in there, as well as the type of structure.
What if someone were to buy a lot and not do that? Is that his responsibility?
It's his responsibility, as well as, dependent upon if it's a violation of the county ordinance, dependent upon what they're building, county may have a right to as well.
Okay. Mr. Kraft, I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
What communication originates between a building inspector, an application for a building permit, and the property? Is there like, hey, I disapprove? Do you have communication between this group and the developer?
I will tell you that I do this in a lot of counties, and most building inspectors and most building departments, when they know there are restrictions of this nature, one of the first things they ask for when somebody goes in to get a building permit, can you show me the developer signed off on this plat or this plan?
And so any direction that would come out of this office, if someone wants to purchase a piece of property, would be to contact, you gotta have this signed. what I'm looking at, if we issue a building permit, that's one of the things we're going to want to see right off the bat.
And that's understandable, and again, it's not out of the ordinary that those things happen when somebody goes in for a building permit. Most counties that I deal with, they have a process, the first thing they're gonna ask is when you go in for that building permit in a restricted area, they're gonna ask, do you have the developer's signature on your set of plans? And if they don't, then they're gonna say, well, we're not gonna issue you a building permit until you have that accomplished.
Okay, thank you. I'll talk to you off on.
I'm sorry.
All right, Tom, you had a question?
Yes, I mean, first off, I'll say to Gary, Mr. Green, you said we had a full board. There's 8 of us and we should have a 9-person board. So just a little semantic, we're 1 person short.
Yeah, I was doing the.
But I guess to our legal counsel to make sure that we are properly and legal advertised, that in the Wednesday, April 2nd, Crothersville time, under a legal notice, it says the notice is hereby given that Scott County Board of Zoning Appeals will hold the public hearing. And it has this today and tonight and at this time in this meeting room. And the action was for Stephen Albach requesting splitting 2 parcels 8 times to develop a minor subdivision. So I guess I want to make sure, were we legally advertised for tonight's meeting and
Well, I think as far as the board, I was probably scriveners there, they're probably not gonna necessarily, do all of that. I mean, we advertised it as it was presented here, and I think the proper notices were sent, and someone could come in, and obviously would have been,
and when you say proper notices like to the surrounding property owners? All of these come back as Scott County Board of Zoning Appeals, and they all state how he's wanting to make additional splits on the 2 separate parcels. And so again,
yeah, that's true, it doesn't say
I just
anything
want to make
about
sure, we're legal in taking action tonight.
right, yes, and then they don't say anything about a,
that they want to
subdivision
have
on that,
8
actually.
splits on the 2 separate parcels.
And that,
Compared to the original plan.
Good question, Matt. I
is that
think
even
it's
accurate? I mean, sure, is there 8, there's not 8 splits on each parcel, is there? I don't even know if there's even,
of the
that's
2
even accurate,
parcels,
so.
of the 2 parcels. And Matt just asked me that it has legal descriptions. I think it's that original where it was the Beckert Auction Company plat. I think that's the one that those numbers would match up to.
Although obviously that is not ideal. It's, like I said, the decision is whether it meets the requirements or it doesn't. It's not whether everybody thinks it's a good idea or doesn't. It's kind of whether it just, so I don't, yes, I'm not happy that it's not completely accurate, but I don't know that that is enough to hold this up today, because we're just saying what has been presented here is it doesn't meet the requirements.
I mean,
And if
that's what I'm
someone,
just wanting to-
wants to bring that up and cause a fuss, we'll deal with it, I guess.
Okay.
I think, I can't quote it, I think those parcel numbers were the parcel numbers you read earlier, not for sure, because it's about 15 digit.
Yeah.
I
Do you
think
have
that-
them handy, or I can confirm with you? Did you write them down?
No, I didn't. I'm a little slow and I've got a hand that doesn't work very well.
Again, I think they might be the, that original track 5 and track 7. No, I'm sorry, from the track 2 and 1.
We just have 2 parcels listed.
By the GIS, county GIS, it's about 94 acres, and I think that matches up to tracks original from the auction, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7, I believe. By what's on the GIS website. So is it about 94 acres you're looking to?
Accepting, there are exceptions to that from the standpoint of this total is not 97 now.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
For those two parcel numbers on the GS website, come up
Correct.
to 94 and some change.
Right, but ultimately, there have been exceptions that have not yet been accepted, EXCEPTE, had not been accepted off of those numbers at this stage.
Again, that was my main concern.
Right,
We were,
yes, so,
does it
So
need
Carla, in
to
your
be
opinion, we can
legally?
continue that?
yes.
Okay. That's our motion.
I guess we'll just, as far as these requirements or not, I guess it's not really about approving or not, you know, do we have a checklist for these?
We should be for subdivision.
Yeah, that's just what they have gone out, I
It's
don't
always
know
been
what
a yes
had
and
it.
no subdivision.
Yeah,
You've never had in the past.
yeah, I don't think that, it's just about whether it's conforms to the
And
Scott County subdivision
we're just-
control ordinance.
Sometimes I'm trying to get a motion formulated in my mind. The motion that it kind of appears in my mind is some of the BZA stuff we have, motion to approve as presented, a motion to approve with contingencies, or a motion to deny. That's kind of what we do in the BZA world. The other part of that is, if we have a motion to approve this subdivision, if it's a positive vote from this board, it's approved. If it's a negative vote, it's not approved. So, given that fact, I think what I'm searching for is a motion to vote to approve based on the presentation that we received from that meeting. I'll need a motion and I'll need a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a
I'll second it.
What's that?
I'll second it.
I have a motion to approve. Second that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, now in front of us, we have that motion to approve.
Thank you.
We had no votes, is that correct?
Correct. Okay, you write that down, make sure we got it, and then we have one abstain, of course, and make sure we have
Now, Mr. Kraft, just as a point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
Okay, while you're still here, is that there is follow-up to this, correct?
This comes back to you for a secondary final plat.
Okay.
And that has to be filed with the Plan Commission office. And then, again, under the terms of your ordinance, as well as the terms of Indiana law, it's a public meeting, but it is not a public hearing as such.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have time for a quick executive session?
Again, it's got money to fix the road.
I don't know if this is so long.